Sean Styles.
BBC Radio Merseyside.
Now, the 50s, the decade of teddy boys, rock and roll, coloured telly. But what was life like in Liverpool itself? A local author, Bob Edwards, has put together a book packed full of memories and photographs all about the era. And Bob told me where the idea for the book originally came from.
It initially came from my website, which is Liverpool Picture Book.
Yeah.
I collected, over the years, large number of photographs, mostly from the Liverpool Records office. Mm-hmm. And I started putting these together on the website in district so that people could come along, have a look where they used to live, where my ma used to live, all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
And people were emailing me saying, can I buy these? And I was referring people back to the records office and saying, you can go down to the search room there and have a look. Mm. But that's not what people wanted. And somebody said, well, why don't you put them all in the book? Now, there's far too many to put in the book because there's like 10,000. But I approached the History Press and said, how would I go about publishing some of these? And the girl from the History Press, Matilda, had a look at the website, got back in touch with me and said, well, how about doing them in short bites? Liverpool in the 1950s, Liverpool in the 1960s. Mm-hmm. So obviously the 50s is my era. You've only got to look at me to see that. And that's where I started with this one.
It's a great idea. So what was the general feeling in the 50s, Bob? You know, war was over, people getting used to not having to ration everything. I suppose it was generally a good feel, wasn't it?
It was. I mean, I was born in Athol Street, just off Scotty Road, and we didn't have much as kids, but, like, the feeling of general relief because people could go and buy stuff in the shops again. Mm-hmm. You could have curtains on your window instead of blackout curtains. And I was born at just at that time when all the doom and gloom was in the past.
I know.
So it was generally a good feeling for people.
And it was a time to rebuild, of course, wasn't it?
Oh, very much so, yeah. Around Athol Street and Scotland Road in the early 50s, it was just Ollers, bomb sites. Yeah. Over a period of probably about 8 to 10 years, up until the 60s, that's when we start to see new 3-storey blocks of flats being built, continuation of building that stopped during the war, like the tenements, Gerard Gardens, halted by the war. That all started again, that building started again. So an awful lot going on.
A revolutionary time as well, as far as the way people looked, the way people socialised and stuff like that, wasn't it?
Oh, big time, yeah. I mean, DAs and lads walking round in the long coats. I mean, towards the late 50s, the winkle pickers. And
the music scene was changing dramatically, wasn't it?
Amazing. Absolutely fantastic. Great time to be brought up.
I mean, the book goes right across the spectrum as far as photographs is concerned. There's some really fantastic stuff in there, isn't it?
Well, there's a format to that, and there's a reason for it. I didn't want to... There are loads and loads of books about Liverpool. And a lot of those feature the Liver buildings and the Albert Dock and the city centre and St George's Hall and all these great buildings and places we've got in the city. And they are fantastic, but I'm a firm believer in giving people a little peek back at what they remember. And everyone remembers the city centre and everybody loves it. But people want to see where my ma lived, where my granddad lived. You know, the sort of...
The ordinary places.
The ordinary streets in Liverpool.
Yeah.
And the photographs in the book have been compiled and collected with that in mind. If you actually look at the format, it takes you on a little tour around Liverpool. It starts in Bootle, and it takes you from Bootle through Liverpool 5 and Scotland Road, and then to Great Homer Street, and then to Everton. It takes you around the city. And that's the general idea, because I wanted people to be able to pick it up and go, that's the street where I lived. Oh, that's the area where I lived.
Remember that, yeah.
People remember something about that particular area.
There's a lot of photographs of children enjoying a park, on the beach, having an ice cream there at the Pier Head. Have you found any of these kids?
I know who some of them are, because I was very fortunate. There's a lady credited at the beginning of the book, and her father, Johnny Lockhart, and he was a local Liverpool photographer.
Yeah.
It started basically as a hobby for Johnny. He started photographing just the very things I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Everyday streets,
things, yeah.
taking the kids out with him. But when he took the kids out, he took his camera. And you got to remember, Sean, like in those days, in the 50s, hardly anyone had a camera. No. None of us had camera phones then. And Johnny went out and he took all these photographs. But developing film in those days was really expensive. So it wasn't until he died that his daughter, Kath, went over and had a look. It was actually her sister who features on the front cover of the book.
Right.
She died.
Oh.
Kath went over to sort the house out and opened up her dad's darkroom for the first time.
Go away.
And there are still lots of photographs there, but some of those I obviously hope to include in my next book. But she gave me a selection of those and said, you can use those. And that's, I really wanted to do that because these kids bring back and evoke memories of exactly what I did when I was a kid. New Brighton Beach, a ride on the ferry, playing to the pierhead when your mum didn't have enough money to take you over to New Brighton. If you were lucky, going up to Formby, playing in Sefton Park, just messing around in the park. All of those things, these Johnny Lockhart photographs, all things we all remember.
Well, they're fantastic, and loads of memories in there. It's called Liverpool in the 1950s, put together by Robert Edwards. On sale in all good bookstockers now, is it, Rob?
It's officially launched as from the 14th of this month, and I'm signing copies of it on the 25th of May in Waterstones in College Lane, Liverpool 1. So if anyone wants to come down, I'll say hello to you. You can ask to buy the book and just come and gab to me so I'm not lonely.
I'm sure they will buy the book. Bob, great to see you, and thanks very much for the book. It's a treasure.
Thank you very much, Sean.
Cheers, pal. Thank you.
Thank you.
There's a good book as well. There's some really, really good pictures of the way the city was, and you think, wow, hang on a minute, let's just visualise where that was. And you can spend hours looking at them photographs and looking at the people, the expressions on the kids' faces. There's some great pictures of kids at the pierhead having a day out and stuff like that. The way it was in the 1950s. It's called Liverpool in the 50s by Bob Edwards, at all good bookstockists as well.